To ride La Course for any rider in the world is a huge honour. It's 90 kilometres of racing on the cobblestones. We're the best in the world in the heart of Paris. The course on the Champs-Élysées is unrelenting. You have the cobblestones, the uphills, the downhill, the corner, and even maybe some rain to throw in the mix. You need to be tenacious, you need to be smart, and you need to spend your energy at the right moment. Once it's time to commit, you just can't look back. The whole world is watching, and it's our time to shine. This is La Course by Le Tour de France. See it live on SBS.
A very good evening to you wherever you're watching right across Australia, and welcome to a big night on SBS. A big night of cycling and a big night from where we're coming from, because we are in the greatest city of them all when it comes to the world of cycling. We are in Paris, in the Champs-Élysées, and this is where the Tour de France finishes later on tonight. But first up, it's the women's race, La Course by Le Tour de France. And the sun is shining, I can tell you. And after a weekend of wet weather in the Alpine districts, I can tell you that Paris is absolutely beaming for this wonderful occasion. 28 degrees is the forecast top temperature this afternoon. Well, you couldn't have asked for a better day in what is the most famous boulevard of them all. We're going to see some wonderful action over the next couple of hours. And joining me right now is a lady who we've all come to know over the last couple of years for La Course. We've got the La Course race coming up very, very shortly. Of course, it's Rochelle Gilmore, and Rochelle will be doing part of the commentary. Welcome.
Thanks, I'm very excited about today's race.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you are, Rochelle. This is the third edition. Tell us about it. Tell us how important it is for the ladies to be here racing on the Champs-Élysées.
Well, this is as big as it gets for the women. It's a massive opportunity on the Champs-Élysées to race in front of really big crowds, and for any team and their sponsors, this is where it's at. This is just as big as it gets.
And Rochelle, Marianne Vos, she was the inaugural winner 2 years ago. It's the third edition. Marianne is back, and it's great to see her back.
Well, she's back and she's in fine form. She's just pulled off 3 stage wins in a recent tour, so we've seen Marianne Vos make a very slow comeback this year, but it looks like she's got her timing right for the Olympics, and La Course really benefits from the form that the athletes have going into the Olympics this year, because it's a strong field and everybody's really at their best peak form.
And Rochelle, the racing on cobblestones compared to the traditional bitumen, the asphalt, how different is it for the ladies?
Well, I think for the Australians it's very difficult because we don't have cobblestones in Australia, but for the Europeans and the Dutch, I think they really thrive on being able to race on the cobblestones, and it suits more of the stronger riders. But Australia does have Chloe Hosking, who's coming off some fine form at the Giro. She won a stage. She's won another World Tour race this year at Tour of Chongming, so she's in great form, and I think that the cobblestones won't really affect her that much.
Well, tell us about the Orica AIS team. Some of the girls are making their debut here. We're not really familiar with them. Amanda Spratt, for example, who was racing here last year in the wet, I remember. She's not here. Of course, riders like Amanda have got Olympic aspirations. Do you think... Amanda, riders like Amanda could have done both?
Well, I think it depends what type of rider you are, and it also depends, I think, a lot on your mental state, whether you can cope with a race a couple of weeks before the Olympics on the Champs-Élysées that was very dangerous last year due to the wet conditions, but it's a beautiful, stunning day here today. I think it's going to be a safe race, and I think it would have been great to see the full, strong lineup from the Orica AIS here, and I would have loved to commentate on them at the race that's actually the biggest, stage that we could put the women on here in women's cycling. So, yeah, Orica, they have a little bit of a depleted team, I think, here today.
Yeah. Well, as far as the race is concerned, Rochelle, it is fast. But is it difficult for these ladies on the cobbles?
Yeah, I think it's a technique that's very unique, and like I said, the European girls, they race on the cobbles all the time, and the Australians that come over and the British riders that are experiencing the cobbles here, it's a different technique. It's a very, very tough style of racing as for the stronger riders. Yeah, and one they look forward to each and every year. Thanks for joining us, and good luck in the commentary. You'll be joining Anthony McCrossan, and we'll be crossing to Rochelle very, very soon. Let's have a look at the course for La Course by Le Tour de France. It's the third edition, 89 kilometres in total distance. They will do 12 laps of a 7.5 kilometre circuit around the Champs-Élysées. And as you heard from Rochelle there, very, very fast, very difficult. But this is a race they certainly look forward to, the women. It is one of the highlights of the Women's World Series.
Well, as I said earlier, the sun is shining and it's great to see Paris absolutely glowing, and this is one of the biggest days of the cycling calendar for the women and for the men. A reminder, later on, the men will come home for the final stage of the Tour de France. Stage 21, it has been one hell of a marathon, and we will see Chris Froome be crowned Tour de France champion for the third time. A big night coming up, a lot of guests here in Paris, so I hope you can stick with us. For now, let's cross to live coverage of La Course by Le Tour de France.
En tête de peloton, c'est la formation Wiggle Night 5 qui roule avec Audrey Cordon, semble-t-il, en tête de peloton, la concurrente bretonne.
And Zabelinskaya of Beiping, but the tempo really being set ferociously by the team of Wiggle High 5. They don't look very happy with the fact that they have missed this breakaway this afternoon. So this four-rider breakaway had their advantage of around about 15 seconds. Not so much, but the pacemaking of Wiggle High 5 is bringing this race back together. So Wiggle High 5 doing a tremendous job. Rochelle alongside me, they will be unhappy that they've missed this breakaway, and it's a very dangerous move with riders like Brand, Black, Barnes and Zabelinskaya. You don't let them get more than 20-30 seconds on this course.
Well, you can see now that Wiggle High 5 are chasing extremely hard. They'll be disappointed that they did miss that move because it was well represented. When you have riders like Black and Brand from Rubber, Liv from Bowles, from the two biggest teams, then Zabelinskaya on really top form, and then Hannah Barnes from Canyon SRAM, another big team. Wiggle High 5 really should have been there, so they've been under pressure having to chase this down, along with the Orica AIS team who also missed it. You'll see them up the front end of the bunch there working hard as well to close this gap, and they'll need to be ready for the next one. But a little bit of unnecessary work because they missed that break for both of those big teams.
13 laps of this circuit these riders faced when they set off at 1:15 this afternoon. They've been riding for almost 1 hour. Very little action in the first, I guess, half an hour. There's a lot of nerves in this race. These riders know just how important it is to bring home a victory on the Champs-Élysées for the teams. But in the last 15 minutes, this race has kicked off a lot. There on the left-hand side, coming through to the front in the orange, Chantal Black, who rides, of course, for the Boels-Dolmans team. A teammate of Lizzie Armistead as we look over the Louvre here in the middle of Paris. Wonderful sight. There's so many iconic areas of this circuit that the riders are racing past. Lizzie Armistead not taking to the start today. She's absolutely concentrating on Rio. I had a message earlier on. She respects La Course a lot, but wants to concentrate to bring home the gold medal in Rio for the Olympic Games. So, Rochelle, it's a real challenge here for the riders. Many riders are moving now over to Rio in the next week. It's so difficult to make a decision. They know that for their teams, for their trade teams, for profile, it's amazing to ride here on the Champs-Élysées. But if they're tired after the Giro d'Italia, the Giro Rosa, which happened a couple of weeks ago, they've got to make this decision, and it's a tough one. And you must have been talking to riders who are trying to have this quandary of what do I do? Do I ride? Do I not ride? Do I risk it? Do I not risk it? It's tough.
Yeah, it is. It has been really tough. I can tell you that. I've been actually recently staying with the Australian national team and talking with the Orica AIS coach about what team they would send here. There's a few Australian riders like Amanda Spratt and Gracie Elvin that we would have absolutely loved to see on the start line here. They've been active in the past, but have chosen not to race here. You can see there's a young Orica AIS rider up there now. That might be Jess Allen, a new rider to the team. But interesting decisions as to not race 2 weeks before going to Rio or being in Rio on the Champs-Élysées. It must be a really tough decision.
But there are riders, of course, who are in this race who are not riding in Rio. This is a massive day for them.
Well, absolutely. Then you have riders that are racing in Rio, like Mariana Vos, who are in there, who want to do well today, that will try and win the race. And there's a lot of riders that are actually favourites in Rio for both the time trial and the road race, who are on the start line today, and I think will have a really good go at winning this race.
Looking down this iconic shot of the Champs-Élysées with the women's peloton. Now the pace is very, very high indeed. And looking down, it looked to me like it was the best young rider in the Women's World Tour who is leading this peloton now with a bit of an attack. And that was Kasia Niewiadoma, who's in the blue jersey. They're going for the sprint points now on the line with 48 kilometers to go. And it's one of the Lens World Zanata riders in the blue and white who crosses that line first to take the intermediate sprints. We'll update you on that sprint competition as we go through the next few laps. There are sprints every single lap, which makes crossing this finish line, Rochelle, you would have thrived on it being a sprinter, but it makes it extremely tough for a rider.
Well, absolutely. You could see that the pace of that sprint wasn't particularly high, and there was some very tired legs already, and very few riders responding to it because it's on a very tough part of the
encore dans ce tour avec de nouvelles accélérations, mais le peloton qui réagit, un peloton qui ne laisse pas s'organiser, les échapper, et cela s'explique très simplement par le fait.
Ouais, c'est le terrain.
Dans l'information, il reste plus beaucoup de monde pour travailler sur la route. On ne peut pas se permettre de laisser plusieurs minutes qui seront plusieurs minutes avant ça.
Alors, à bon ça.
Par l'équipe de 6 et joue un rôle bien évidemment important dans ce cadre-là. Voilà, on va attaquer dans quelques instants et on rattaque sur la gauche de la chaussée là-bas. On les attaques qui fusent dans le peloton. On est tout le monde dans le cul. C'est vraiment intéressant pour celles qui sont en condition physique de pouvoir passer un démarrage. On arrive sur le haut de l'avenue des Champs-Élysées ici avec le peloton. On va aller tourner place de l'Étoile autour de l'Arc de Triomphe.
Ouais, j'ai l'envie, j'ai l'envie. Vas-y. Bon, vas-y, les remontes restent comme ça, tu peux remonter. Attends, il y a des coups. Hein? Non. Ça part encore.
Sentiment de puissance avec le Stephens pour la formation Team Silicon Valley. l'accélération de Will Stevens correspond à Tico Silicon Valley. La lauréate de ce classement par points, voilà, peloton finlandienne qui se présente en bas des Champs-Élysées et que nous allons voir passer dans un instant. On vous invite à vous que vous soyez à saluer par vos applaudissements l'ensemble des concurrentes. Formidable panorama, nouvelle accélération. Va-t-on retrouver une nouvelle fois donc Nina Kessler parmi les meilleurs? Il semble que oui, Nina Kessler qui une nouvelle fois passe en tête. Nina Kessler qui fait le plein de points. de triomphe avec le passage des pelotons. On a repris un petit peu l'allure là, on sent que le peloton donc est à quelques reprises à l'allure. On a la personne en première position, des Pays-Bas qui gagne le rythme, mais on a quelque peu ralenti, c'est vrai, depuis une dizaine de kilomètres là, on roule à l'accélérateur et forcément les organismes se sont marqués, forcément. les routes de Plan-les-Belgiennes. On voit après qu'on est à moins de 6 tours de l'arrivée. Moins de 6 tours de l'arrivée pour le peloton. Le cap de la mi-course a été franchi. sur l'avenue des Champs-Élysées avec le peloton que l'on aperçoit. Ça roule relativement vite, mais pour l'instant, pas d'attaque. Personne n'arrive à faire la différence. Il restera 5 tours au passage sur la ligne d'arrivée, 5 tours à couvrir.
Bienvenue sur le Tour de France. Pour votre sécurité, soyez vigilants. Ne laissez pas vos sacs sans surveillance et signalez tout objet abandonné ou situation anormale. Soyez attentifs aux messages sonores, des consignes de sécurité pourraient vous être communiquées. Merci.
Ouais, je passe un peu.
Ciel, alors que la course dans un nouvel accélération pas facile.
Hi, Stu. Well, good afternoon and good evening to the viewers back home. Firstly, apologies for the audio dropout. We sincerely apologise on behalf of SBS, but Hank Vogels and myself, Dave McKenzie, are stepping in due to our technical staff here on the ground. We've managed to get some audio up, so we will fill in until they get the international signal back up. Hank, good to have you alongside me. How good is this, having La Course? I think this is the third year we've had the women race here on the Champs-Élysées. We've got, as we speak, Orica AIS. We can, I think, be a little bit biased towards them, the Australian team, and they're on the attack. It's been a fast race so far, just under 5 laps to go.
Yeah, it's a very hot day here, Macca, and what a way to shape this race here on the Champs-Élysées. This is really the biggest stage for these ladies, and what a venue we have here on the Champs-Élysées. I've ridden this course. It's not an easy course uphill. They're not real cobbles, but they certainly do hurt going up the hill, Macca.
Tell us a little bit more about the course. As you said, you've raced around here. It's basically been the same finish course for years in the men's Tour de France, and the women are using pretty much the same course. What is it like? What's it like racing up and down the Champs-Élysées? Because, as you said, one part of it is uphill, and it is slightly uphill and slightly downhill, depending on which way you go.
Yeah, it's not easy, that's for sure. It's a grind. It's a real grind. I mean, the riders can ride on the right-hand side. There is a very smooth patch right on the gutter where, when it's really on, they can ride up there. But they will suffer up the climb for sure, and they ride around the Arc de Triomphe. They didn't back in my day, but you know, there's tens of thousands of people here, and they'll be very excited to race up here. It's very quick after the Arc de Triomphe down the hill, so it really does suit the sprinters teams because they can reorganise on the descent.
Well, we can just see there that attack that went on the charge just into the last lap. There's a Wiggle High Five rider there, also an Orica AIS. United Healthcare rider there as well. There's a couple of handy sprinters. Corinne Rivera, Hank, you mentioned her before, is one potential that could challenge today for the end. Good to see Mariana Vos here. She was out with injury 12 months ago. She was here watching 12 months ago. She is one of the greats of women's cycling, Mariana Vos, and of course...
Well, it's a very strong team, isn't it, there with Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, 2 world championship, Olympic champion in that team. Obviously the Rabo Live women's cycling team, and a huge team in women's cycling for sure, and they love it, the Dutchies, and they really do it correctly, as we see another rider here going off the front from Wiggle Honda, with 28.2 kilometres to go, and followed by a United Healthcare rider, and it's very tough to get away on this course, Mac. It really is suited to the sprinters. It's not really hard enough to split the field in many groups, so you can get a free ride if you are a sprinter, and a lot of these ladies will be taking care of their team sprinter for sure.
Yeah, they will, and that's it. The speed is so fast, and it's amazing today. Last year, let's just cast our minds back. It was rain-soaked for La Course for the women. There was so many crashes, and it was Van der Breggen, the Dutch lady, who broke away on the last lap. Such a strong ride. She held them off, and on the wet, slippery, cobbled streets of Paris, she stole victory. But it's not often you do, and on a day like today, it's quite warm. We are standing literally on the course here on the Champs-Élysées. It's probably 25, 26 degrees at the moment, but very fast. And as you just said, it's so hard to get away, isn't it? And the Champs-Élysées, I think it gives it away a little bit on the TV, but it is such a long straight. It's probably 1 to 2 kilometres in length, so very hard when you've got big straight stretches, wide boulevards, to get any sort of gap on a peloton.
And that's right, and as you see where the ladies are coming right now, it's a fast finish there, but there are those two corners, and if you aren't right and you haven't got the right position in those last two corners, you can absolutely be in trouble here. So, you know, I'm sure that they will be getting, I'm sure they'll be going and getting their lead-out trains organised.
So another attack on here as they come through with 4 laps to go. 4 laps remaining, 26.9 kilometres to go. So 4 laps left of the circuit.
121 riders in today's race. Haven't seen too many riders get dropped off the back, Macca. This really is suited to a bunch sprint for today's race. I mean, these ladies will be...
Well, Hank, I think our job is done. I think we have the international signal back up. So thanks for putting up with myself, Dave McKenzie and Hank Vogels. We'll now cross to Anthony McCrossan, I believe, and Rochelle Gilmore.
Things are going in there right now.
Very nervous, I guess. Like we said before the race, she was extremely nervous on edge. That's what happens when you really want something so badly and you've got the form to actually achieve that, and that's what we see with Chloe after she came off that stage win at the Giro d'Italia. She quickly transferred her focus to La Course. She has recently got engaged, so she's high on life at the moment. Everything's going really well for her. She's a happy little Chloe Hosking and very focused on La Course today.
On the front again, and it is Tromp of the Park Hotel team who is going clear. And again, everything is very much lined out. There is Bowles-Dolmans towards the front, United Healthcare looking after Corinne Rivera. And we've got also up towards the front, United Healthcare, certainly, I think for Corinne Rivera, are looking very strong indeed. 25 kilometres of racing to go as we see the riders continue uphill towards the Arc de Triomphe yet again. We see the peloton all lined out. There's a few riders hanging on. We haven't seen too many riders drop off the back of this peloton. Hannah Barnes slipping back a little bit. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, she's really easy to spot and pick out. She kind of sits to the left-hand side on the bike as we pick up there with Cecile Jonsson of the High-Tech Products team, one of the Norwegian squad. High-Tech Products have got Emilie Morberg and Simona Frapporti. Julie Leth, also another rider in there who has an opportunity in this race maybe to break away before the finish. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, I talked to her before the start. I don't know if you saw Rochelle. She had a terrible crash in mountain biking. She scarred her all over her face. She is obviously looking forward to Rio, but she's had a terrible time for injuries, crashes, since she was the world champion.
It's just amazing. Last year, as you know, she held those 3 World Championship jerseys across cyclocross, mountain bike and road. For me, that was just a phenomenal thing to experience in women's cycling, to have an athlete hold those 3 jerseys. Apparently she had a 4th jersey also in relay mountain biking as well. So 4 World Championship jerseys at the one time for Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, the French rider who's here on the start line at La Course, riding for Rabobank, the team of Mariana Vos. And she's had a terrible, since then, she's had a terrible run of bad luck with injuries and crashes, and This time last year, you probably would have said that she'd be a favourite for the Olympic road race, and she's just had terrible bad luck.
She broke her knee, didn't she? She broke her knee terribly. But you think back, we think that she's like 28, 29 years of age. She's 24 years of age. She's the first person ever, male or female, to hold the World Championship road, cyclocross and mountain bike all at the same time. She was the youngest rider at London 2012. She's going here to Rio after a terrible crash. She's a real fighter. She's the winner of Flèche Wallonne, which of course, as you mentioned, is that tough climb at the finish. It's a sort of Rio finish. She could surprise everybody when she gets to Rio, such is her fighting spirit. But you look at her, she wasn't afraid to tweet the photos of her absolutely thumped up face the other day, black eyes, scars, everything, and she's back here on the Champs-Elysees. She said to me before the start, we're going to ride for Mariana and we're going to try and win a hat-trick of victories to Rabo Liv, and she's sitting near the front and she looks pretty comfortable.
Well, she's definitely a very valuable teammate for Mariana Vos, and she's a phenomenal bike rider, as you know, with these Palmares, but what is she capable of in the future? We don't know yet. I don't think we've actually seen the best of Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. You can see she's the one that's got the World Championship stripes on her Rabo Liv jersey, just to your left, out of your left of your screen there at the moment. I think we're going to see great things from her in the future as well.
Let's just pick out what's going on at the front of this race now, because Rochelle, we're into inside 25 kilometres to go. Before, we've seen one or two riders from each team sitting together, but now what we're starting to see is some formations. If you look very closely, right hand side of the peloton, the entire Liv Planteur team are all together. They're starting to move up with Leah Kirschman on the wheels. They're all lined up on the left hand side of the road, the right hand side as we look at the peloton generally, as we look over the Sacré-Cœur and the magnificent sides of Paris here in the sunshine. Right now, the sprinters will be starting to come forward with their teams. They'll be finding their teams and the trains as we see a problem for Niwa Doma. I don't know whether she had a mechanical gear problem, something like that, but she's coming back into the peloton with one of the Ale Cipollini team. We see High Tech now starting to form up. They're the team in white, black and blue. If you start to pick out the formations, if you were the sprinter in here, because that's what you did as a sprinter, what would you be telling your team right now?
I'd certainly like to have a couple of riders around me just to make sure that if I do get a little bit balked and slip back in the peloton, that they can quickly move me back up into the front. Certainly with just 22 kilometres to go, you want to be positioned in the top 10 or 15 for as long as you possibly can, or be sitting a little bit further back but have plenty of teammates around you to make sure you can control things and you can move up to the front if needed and if necessary. But it's a matter of watching the other teams and which riders move to the front, and if you see the big names of the strong riders move to the front, you certainly want to be there, and if you have some teammates around you, they can just use the energy to push the wind and move you up to the front.
Pauline Ferrand-Prévot just taking a drink, sitting near the front. Another big attack. It comes again from Park Hotel, who don't want this to end up as a bunch sprint this afternoon. So 121 riders, 21 teams took to the start here in La Course, the third edition of this race. 13 times around the Champs-Elysees, 89 kilometres in total. At the back of the peloton, the pace has calmed right down. There's stress and nerves and riders who want to win here, and no one is prepared to take up the action too much, but there's a little group of riders trying to go clear at the front.
Well, I think this is one of the first times that we've seen the pace lull like that, and a few of the riders just be able to take the pressure off the pedals. But like we mentioned earlier, it would be interesting if there's too many teams that are actually confident to let it come back to a bunch sprint because of the form that Mariana Vos is in, and that she will have a lot of experience, obviously won here before, that if it comes down to a bunch sprint, it would be very difficult to beat the likes of Mariana Vos.
Now, are the Australians going to get a win today? 21 kilometres of racing remaining. The Australians well represented, as usual, in this field. Is Tiffany Cromwell going to bring a victory? Is Chloe Hosking going to cross the line first? Is it going to be a day for the Aussies?
Well, they both have a very, very good chance, I can tell you that much. And talking to Chloe Hosking before the race, I asked her if she fears anyone in particular, and she said, obviously, Mariana Vos is the favourite, but I think I can possibly beat her. I haven't spoken to Tiffany Cromwell today, but Canyon Schramm will definitely be supporting her for a victory here in La Course. And like I said, she's one rider that will really thrive on the prestige of this event and the crowds and the atmosphere around it. She'll be very, very motivated today for a victory.
Tiffany Cromwell's looking very chic this morning. She's had her nails done all Tour de France style. Every nail is very different. She has her hair done specially. She is ready to win this race and stand on the top step of the podium, no doubt whatsoever.
Well, if she's gone to that much trouble, I'm sure she's going to make sure she is on the podium today, that's for sure.
Looking down on the women's peloton in this Women's World Tour 20.8 kilometre race here, La Course by Le Tour de France. We've seen the initial breakaways, we've seen the race come back together. We saw originally Lucinda Brand, Chantal Black, Hannah Barnes and Zabelinskaya with the initial attackers on this race. We've seen little skirmishes from time to time, but so far no one has been able to break away. The big teams want this to be a bunch sprint. The sprinters in the field as we run through the teams. Mariana Vos, another intermediate sprint coming up again. It's BTC B-Pink at the front. Also Topsport Vlaanderen in the mix and Lensworld Zanata. They're the smaller teams who want to bring home some sort of jersey. But Rabo Liv with Mariana Vos, Team Liv Planteur with Leah Kirschman, the Canadian sprinter. Boels Dolmans, we're not quite sure what the plan is. It could be Ellen van Dijk, it could be Chantal Black. Canyon Schramm, we think, are riding for Tiffany Cromwell this afternoon. Wiggle high five for Chloe Hosking. The riders going through the area of the feed for the soigneurs. Cordon wants to really split this race up immediately. It's Pauline Ferrand-Prévot who gets on the wheel. Pawlowska is also there. A big attack there by Audrey Cordon, but it comes back together.
Well, I don't think it was any coincidence that Pauline Ferrand-Prévot was right onto the wheel there, because she knows the strength of that French rider, Audrey Cordon, and Audrey Cordon means business here on French roads. It was closed down very quickly. We can see now that there is a lot of interest from the teams to keep this together. Is it for a late attack or is it for a sprint? We saw Boels Dolmans was there very closely as well, but Pauline Ferrand-Prévot closed that down very quickly, so it's very evident that Rabo Liv are here to win this bike race with Mariana Vos in a sprint finish.
Well, let's see what happens. We are getting close to finding out who will win the third edition of La Course. The peloton is still all together. As we see on the front now, the team of United Healthcare. Inside the final 17 kilometres of racing in La Course by Le Tour de France. We've seen a little skirmish in the last few minutes. One rider trying to go clear. That was Audrey Cordon of the Wiggle High Five team, but that was quickly nullified by the big teams, and the race is now all back together yet again. No one is able to break away from this group. One rider I'm just going to also mention is the British rider Danny King. Danny King is an amazing time trialist. She's one of the fastest 4K pursuiters in the world. So is she going to try a last-minute breakaway for the Wiggle High Five team, or will she be used as the lead-out rider for Chloe Hosking?
Well, I was going to say it's interesting for me to see also, Anthony, what the tactics will be with Denny King towards the end of this bike race. Obviously, she's there, she's very fit, she's in condition. We've seen that she's been riding near the front, so she's feeling good today. Will they use her for a late breakaway, or will they use her for protecting Chloe Hosking and making sure she's in the right position? I'm tending to think that they're going to use Denny King to stay by the side of Chloe Hosking, trying to put her in a good position.
You need someone with that amount of firepower. A few weeks ago, I saw her ride the Red Hook Crit in London, a fixed wheel criterium around a criterium circuit, which is pretty dangerous, very fast. She absolutely destroyed the opposition. She rode away, she lapped the entire field on a fixed wheel bike in a criterium. She looked amazing.
Well, it's just been really inspiring to see how she's managed and coped mentally with the non-selection for the Rio Olympics. Obviously, she wanted to be there to support Lizzie Armitstead at the Olympics, and she did everything she possibly could this year, and the heartbreak of not being selected was going to make or break Denny King, but we've just seen the absolute best physically come out of Denny King since that non-selection. So she's certainly very focused, and she's an absolutely dedicated teammate. So if I was a sprinter for Wiggle High Five like Chloe Hosking, I'd really be counting on Denny King to put me in the right position. As we say, here she is now actually going on the attack. So it was a question mark, will they use her up to make the race hard, go on the attack? It's possible that she can manage both, but it's only 15 kilometres to go, so this could be the last real, pressure that Denny King puts down.
We didn't cue this up, but the attack now of Denny King of Wiggle High Five as she tries to take everyone else on a little bit of an excursion off the front. I wouldn't want to go on that ride there on the left-hand side. That looks like far too much way to watch a bike race. But Denny King trying to stretch this race out now for Wiggle High Five. She's an Olympic champion on the track, of course. She's one of the top road riders in the world, and it looks like that attack by Denny King has been nullified, and we're now starting to see the sprinters teams taking control of the front of the race. As we look down from this shot, it looks to me like Lens World are up towards the front there, the team in blue and white. Ale Cipollini are also there in the luminous yellow colours. If you've not seen the Women's World Tour before, this is, we'll pick out some of the squad so you can understand which teams are in here. So it is Lens World Zanata, the team in blue and white on the front. Also in there, they've been involved in the sprints competition all the way through today. We'll update you on the results of that later on at the end of this programme. But they've been involved in all the sprints behind Orica AIS. 2 laps of racing to go. Now is the time when we have to see, we haven't seen Marianne Vos all day. We haven't seen the likes of Tiffany Cromwell all day. And that, as you know, Rochelle, is perfect for a rider who wants to win a race. You only want to see them in the last 200 metres.
They have been hiding very well. We haven't seen any of the main players from the teams that want to contest the sprints, but we just see another attack go now. This is the French rider.
Big attack here at the front, and one rider trying to go clear, and this is one of the members of the French squad of Poitou-Charentes Futuroscope who is going clear. This is Eugénie Duval, who looks very, very comfortable in a time trial. Just trying to break away, open up a little bit of a gap, and one of the smaller French teams, made up entirely of French riders, will be a team that the other squads will look at and think, do we let her go? Do we not? She's an under-23 rider. They don't really know too much about her. They won't have raced against her a lot, but she's opening up a little bit of an advantage.
Well, you can see them all looking around, looking at each other with a bit of a hesitation there, while another rider just jumped off the front. We can't actually pick up who that is, but it is Lucinda Brand, Rabo Liv. She's been off the front early in the race, driving a 4-woman break, and it looked dangerous at the start of the race, but now this is being closed down by Wiggle High Five. Lucinda Brand, very, very active race from her.
Lucinda Brand, well, we know she didn't get selected for Rio. She was disappointed at that. She knew she hadn't had the best season. She's the former Dutch champion. You can see everyone trying to fight for the right-hand side of the road. I spoke to her before the start, and she said, this is better weather than last year, but she laughed and she said, I didn't mind last year. Last year was fine. It didn't matter that it rained. I love the cobbles. I like the rain. I don't mind. I'm just here in the Champs-Elysees, but we're going to have some fun this afternoon, and there's no doubt that she's having some fun as she goes clear from the front of the race right now. So it is Lucinda Brand who is on the attack on the front of this race for the Rabo Liv team, going clear, a little bit of an advantage on the rest of the field. It looks like one of the Wiggle High Five riders who is coming across to her. But Lucinda Brand is a rider who could pull off the big victory, because everyone will look around here and they'll now not want to chase down one of the Rabo Liv team, because they know it will play into the hands of Marianne Vos. So Lucinda Brand goes clear. She is wearing number 2 in the orange and white. The pace has calmed down. The United Healthcare team are the riders who are doing the chasing right now, but 3 riders on the attack with 11.5 kilometres to go. One is Lucinda Brand. When we get the camera down there, we'll find out who the Wiggle High Five rider is and who else is in this group.
Well, we said that it may not come down to a bunch sprint. We saw last year with Anna van der Breggen just slipping off. The teammate of Marianne Vos, Anna van der Breggen, is not here this year, but last year just slipped off the front to take the victory solo. Coming in second was Jolien Daughter, who's not present, and Amy Peters of Wiggle High Five, who may be in this break. We need to get a little bit of a better look who this is.
Lucinda Brand.
Whoa. Amy Peters, that was her plan, to be in a late move, so she's going to work this very hard.
So she has made the move. 3 really strong riders going clear. Team Tipco are this American squad who've been around for a long, long time. A great setup. They have been racing in the United States of America first, then they changed to a European and American program. I'm just looking to see who it is who is in this group, and it looks to me like it's Lauren Stevens who is the Tipco rider. So the 3 riders on the attack. Lucinda Brand there, the former Dutch champion. This is a really dangerous move now. Amy Peters, who was on the podium last year, there she is wearing lucky number 51, and Lauren Stevens of Team Tipco is the rider in the blue and luminous yellow. You don't want to let 3 riders who can time trial the way these 3 can go clear like this, Rochelle.
Well, we just saw Amy Peters slip back into second position there. Lucinda Brand did not come through that time, so she's either in trouble hurting a little bit or being instructed that this is the race for Marianne Vos. A little bit more of a sure bet than letting Lucinda Brand sprint against the likes of Amy Peters and Lauren Stevens. So I don't know if Rabo Liv, the team of Marianne Vos, are entirely happy with this move now. Certainly does put pressure on a few of the other teams back there, but it's a really strong position for Amy Peters to be in from the Wiggle High Five team.
I would say, yeah, from this 3-rider breakaway, if you're going to put your money on who would win from this 3 riders, it would be Amy Peters. Peters, of course, from the Wiggle High Five team, has finished on the podium here before. She's the daughter of Peter Peters, another very famous male bike rider, a stage winner in the Women's Tour, 25 years of age, as she goes clear from the front of the race. But Lucinda Brand is a rider who's searching for a big win. She's used to winning big bike races. She hasn't had a big victory for a while. She's been not struggling with form. She's been carrying out her team duties. Today she wants to win this one, and she's got 10 seconds now with inside the final 10 kilometres. The alarm bells for the sprinters teams are going to start to sound very, very soon, and they're going to have to do something about it. And it's the American team of United Healthcare, guided by a British director in Rachel Hill, who are now trying to chase this one down.
Well, Marianne Vos does describe her teammate that's in the breakaway, Lucinda Brand, as being one of the craftiest, most tactical bike riders that she's ever met. But she's in trouble here. She's losing the wheel. She doesn't look so comfortable. That means that she's either going to have to drop back and help with a chase or ask Rabo Liv to bring this back. but she's certainly not feeling extremely comfortable there. I was about to say, Anthony, she could use this to her advantage to take that big victory by just sitting on for the next 8.9 kilometres and hoping to beat these two riders in a sprint after she's been sitting on, which is possible. She's got time to recover, and she's got Marianne Vos back in the peloton.
She had to make a massive effort there to get onto the wheel as we go down the banks of the Seine now. An arrowhead on the front with United Healthcare. How cool did Lauren Stevens look just then? Whilst Lucinda Brand is struggling to get on the wheel, Lauren Stevens looks across at the camera, nonchalantly looked like, yep, I'm at the front of the course and this is going well.
I'm in the breakaway. That's where I was supposed to be at this point of the race, and she does look quite comfortable, as does Amy Peters. But Lucinda Brand, she's the key for the victory of Marianne Vos today, and that's what difference having a race radio communication from the rider back to the car has, because when she was getting dropped off the wheel, her director would have seen that, would have been in the radio saying, don't drop the wheel, we can't afford you to drop the wheel, stay there on the wheel, stay there on the wheel. So she has to work really hard to make sure that she stays there, and we can see now that she might actually be moving through for a turn.
The advantage on a race like today, which doesn't always happen in the Women's World Tour, is that the team directors can have what the male directors have, which is a live TV feed in the car. It means they can immediately see what's going on. A lot of discussion going on between the riders from United Healthcare, but Lauren Stevens, to me, looks like she's on the top form of her life as she goes to the front and looks around and says, come on, you need to work hard, and they're going to have to ask Lucinda Brand to do very short turns at the front.
Well, the peloton, oh, there's a crash.
Oh, a massive crash on the right-hand side. It's getting nervy in here. A number of riders have gone down. One of them is Taylor Wiles. Also, one of the Wiggle High Five riders is down. There's a few other riders have hit the deck.
That's Danny King from Wiggle High Five. You've got two riders from Bowles-Dolmans, one there from Orica not moving.
Pavlovska, I think, is also down. That was a big tumble on the right-hand side. What happened? One rider touched wheels. It was one of the Tibco riders, and then there was nowhere to go for a lot of the rest. About 10 riders hitting the deck there. The first wheel was a Tibco rider, so they were having a good time in the breakaway, but they've got one rider who's caused a massive crash in here with a touch of wheels.
That'll make a few riders nervous, and that's what that's actually gone into the advantage, I think, a little bit of the breakaway. They've only got 10 seconds with 7 kilometres to go, but and the peloton now working really hard. It looks like Top Sport Vlaanderen on the front there trying to bring that back.
One lap of racing to go in La Course. 10 seconds the advantage for 3 riders. Lucinda Brand of Rabo Liv, Amy Peters of Wiggle High Five, Lauren Stevens of Team Tibco. That crash has caused a little bit of problem in the peloton, because some riders, particularly Bowles-Dolmans, have been held up by that crash, and some of their faster riders, I think Pavlovska was one of them, has been left at the side of the road, which means they won't come to the front now until close to the end of this race. 8 seconds the advantage for the 3 leaders.
It looks like the peloton's naturally coming back now, with a lot of trains getting together. You saw the Liv Planteur team, they're getting it together for Leah Kirchmann, and you've also got the Lotto Soudal team, they're also getting it together for a lead out. So you can see a lot of teams grouping together, which will probably naturally bring this breakaway of 3 riders back.
So can they stay away? Lauren Stevens just sitting with her hands nicely rested in the middle of the bars. Looks really comfortable going uphill. The rest of the riders behind, massing that peloton very much smaller than it was. Liv Planteur moving up. That's the team in black and luminous green. That's Sarah Mustonen who's moving up. Sarah Mustonen, who was a boxer before she was a bike rider. But still, Amy Peters, Lucinda Brand and Lauren Stevens are the leaders, with 1 lap of racing to go, and Stevens has been the main powerhouse in this breakaway. She has ridden supremely, but it's Liv Planteur with Sarah Mustonen who are just cruising this one back. Mustonen is one of those riders you can put on the front. She's like a diesel engine. She will just put the power on, like you can see now, and she will slowly edge the team back to the front of the race. Wiggle High Five moving up. Liv Planteur all there sitting in the wheels of Sarah Mussonen, 2 or 3 back. And what a supreme effort being done here to bring this race back together. Cordon is second wheel. Christine Majerus of Bols Dolmans is sitting there in the colours of the Luxembourg champion. Up towards the front is Anuska Costa. She's the Dutch champion you can pick out, sitting in the third line of riders. Ale Cipollini represented, and I would say, Rochelle, that the Ale Cipollini rider who will be up there is Bastianelli, the Italian rider.
Well, we can see, if you look closely, that the Canyon Tram team are all together, and Mariana Vos is also there. Rabo Liv, they're on the radio talking to each other, so very relaxed with 5 kilometres to go, just trying to get themselves together on the right side of the road for a lead out.
Mariana Vos is boxed in a little bit on the right-hand side of the peloton, but she's riding cleverly in the gutter. She's not riding on the cobbles. She's staying, and now she sees the road open up. Very clever Mariana Vos, moving up on the right-hand side. If you look down on this helicopter shot now, just look on the left-hand side, you'll see Mariana Vos now. If you look on this shot, you'll see her moving up steadily. There she goes. Mariana Vos is trying to get herself to the front of this race now to bring home another victory, but still, don't forget, we have 3 riders clear. Lauren Stevens, Lucinda Brand and Amy Peters is starting to wind up for this sprint. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, second wheel. Now we see the arrival of Canyon Schramm, bringing Tiffany Cromwell up towards the front of the race as well. 10 seconds the advantage. They've still got to close it, Rochelle. It hasn't happened yet as Rabo Liv move up on the right-hand side with the former world champion Mariana Vos.
Well, there's been a big question about will Mariana Vos have a sprint if it gets dangerous, but the amount of work that her team have done today to bring this back together. We see Lucinda Brand now. She's just tapping through for turns, but she's certainly not wanting this breakaway to stay away. So Rabo Liv have put in a very, very big effort today to set things up for Mariana Vos. So I think it's going to be a very exciting sprint. We saw Mariana just making her way to the front there to find some of her teammates and get herself set up.
Amy Peters just got a glimpse of her shoes there. They say her name down the left-hand side of her shoes as we look here at the front of the race. It's coming back together. Big turns now being done. The sprinters getting ready to... another big crash. And one of the riders from Ale Cipollini has hit the deck there. And that is Tagliaferro. So Bastianelli will not have Tagliaferro to help her in the finishing sprint. Another one of the Wiggle High 5 riders may be down. And... one of the French riders has hit the deck as well, and looks like may have hit the curb, but she's moving, and she looks like she may just have a few cuts and bruises there as the race comes back together. 4 kilometres to go. Audrey Cordon left at the side of the road. That's a shame. She wanted to do well here for France and for her Wiggle High 5 team, but that was a very heavy crash.
It was a heavy fall indeed, and obviously all these riders are thinking about the Rio Olympics, but Audrey Cordon, she would have been very happy to be on the start line here. She looks like she's okay. Let's hope that she's all good for the Rio Olympics. 3.3 kilometres to go, getting very exciting. All back together now for a bunt sprint. We have the favourites in there, Mariana Vos. We have Tiffany Cromwell from Canyon Tram. Another crash.
Another big crash. That's a huge crash. It's very nervous in here. No team has been able to take control of the front of the race. Kasia Niwadoma is in there. She's standing up and safely okay, but it's so nervous. It means an awful lot to these riders to win, but it's a crash at the front of the race, Rochelle, and it shouldn't really, we shouldn't be seeing crashes so close to the front of the race, but it's so nervy.
It has been. All of these crashes have taken place quite close to the front. We see now a very reduced size of the peloton.
Yep, so we're coming down now with a reduced size of peloton, 2.7 kilometres to go. I'm just looking to see if Mariana Vos and the other big names are safely in here. I did see one of the Liv Planteur riders hit the deck, so I don't know if that was Leah Kirschman. Moving up as Anuska Costa. Chloe Hosking is safely there for Wiggle High 5. I'm just looking to see if I see Mariana Vos. I don't necessarily see Mariana Vos here, so we might see a surprise winner of this race come through on this line. I'm looking to see if I see Lotta Lepisto of Cervelo Bigler. Lauren Rowney is there. Lucinda Brand's looking round for Marianne Vos. I think they're in a little bit of disarray. Marianne Vos is on the left-hand side. Tiffany Cromwell has stayed out of trouble. She's being led through here by the rest of her team. Elena Amalusic is there. She normally leads her out. 2 kilometres to go now as they go fast left-hander over the bridge and into now the closing stages and into the tunnel.
Well, that was a big move from a Bowles-Dolman's rider wanting to move to the front, but just made a little bit of a gap. We're going to see if they come out of the tunnel here that there is a couple of riders now that have a break.
A couple of riders have gone clear. One of the Bowles-Dolman's riders could be Ellen van Dijk, who's gone clear here for Bowles-Dolman's. This could be a big, big move now. Can they go clear and outwit the sprinters? 1.5 kilometres to go. They go along here and they turn right. It is Ellen van Dijk. This is not a surprise. Now it is Canyon Schramm who've got to close up on Ellen van Dijk, the winner, of course, of the Tour of Flanders, the winner of the World Championship on the scratch race on the track, a time trial world champion in Florence. You cannot give her more than a couple of seconds.
This is what we spoke about, Ellen van Dijk being the time trial rider that can make this move and that can win this race from a breakaway. It's Rabo Liv now moving to the front to pick up the pace.
This is going to be a furious finish because Ellen van Dijk has outwitted all the sprinters. Canyon Schramm have used Elena Amalusic. Marianne Vos are trying to move up. She's got a couple of seconds. Is it going to be enough after 2 hours of racing? She's going to turn that final corner. She goes round the Place de la Concorde. Ellen van Dijk still the leader. She's going to turn right. She doesn't want to look round now. She's got a couple of seconds, but the sprinters lining up.
And this is going to be close, but I don't think she's going to make it. It's going to be so close. The Rabo riders pulled off. It leaves the sprinters in the wind.
And here we go now. The sprinters are left and right across the road. Ellen van Dijk just in front. Chloe Hosking now is onto the wheel. Tiffany Cromwell is there. Hosking is going clear. Here goes Marianne Vos. Chloe Hosking's gone very, very early. Marianne Vos is trying to get on terms. Chloe Hosking is going to win La Course. Chloe Hosking wins. Chloe Hosking wins to a wiggle high five. What a sprint. She went very, very early, but she takes the victory. Rochelle, what a win.
Oh, unbelievable, Anthony. We know she had the form after that win in really emotional, obviously, for Chloe. She had that win at the Giro d'Italia, but she was certainly fastest today. You saw she went very early, but super fast.
What a win by Chloe Hosking of Australia for wiggle high five. She went so early. I thought she'd gone too early. An emotional moment for Rochelle here in the commentary box as she sees one of her team take the victory after so many crashes on the run-in. Chloe Hosking is the winner of La Course by Le Tour de France. What a win by Chloe Hosking. She went so early. Marianne Vos left it late. Hosking, a stage winner in Qatar, stage winner in Chongming, third in Ghent, Wevelgem, a stage winner in the Route de France. The 25-year-old Australian rider is the winner of La Course by Le Tour de France. What a victory for her today. Well, we asked whether an Australian would take today's win. There's been a few crashes out here on the course. The medical teams are looking after everybody. Look at the sprint of Chloe Hosking. She had a little bit of a lull in the middle of the season. At the beginning of the season, she was very much on form. She said yesterday that she was nervous, but she felt super strong now on the bike. And today, she proves that. Family are happy.
Well, that is a tremendous start to our live coverage of the Tour de France, and Chloe Hosking, a sensational victory, creating a slice of history, the third edition of this great race. And don't go away. When we come back, Matthew Keenan will join us to look back on an historic moment.
Every
if you've been to this part of the world, you'd love Paris too, but I think Chloe Hosking will love Paris just that little bit more tonight. What a great result for Australian cycling. This is a terrific event and it's growing with every passing year on the women's calendar. Welcome back to our live coverage on SBS. I am joined by Matthew Keenan, and Keeno, we know Chloe Hosking very well. A terrific result, don't you think?
Who needs romance in Paris when you've got a bike race and you're Chloe Hosking? That win today by Chloe Hosking, that marks her as the favourite for the World Championships this year, which she's based her last 2 seasons around. The World Championships there in Qatar this year, it's a flat course, much like we see here in Paris. She might be coming home at the end of the season with a rainbow jersey.
Well, let's just confirm the results now. Chloe in front ahead of Lepisto, the Finnish rider, and Marianne Vos, a 7-time world champion in cyclocross, a multiple world champion on the road, and there she is in 3rd place today. And what does that tell you?
Well, that tells us that the win by Chloe Hosking is a world-class win. It's not a case of this just being an exhibition race. This is a world-class event. And for many of the riders in this race, this is the biggest event that they'll ride this year. So to beat Marianne Vos, that just adds a little bit of extra glory to it.
Look, the Olympics aren't too far away, a couple of weeks away, and you've got the World Championships coming up in October. This event, make no bones about it, is up there with those two.
It is. It only really sits, in my view, as a promotional piece for women's cycling behind the Olympic Games. Even though the World Championships is more important as an athlete to win and get that rainbow jersey, this is more important as a marketing tool for women's cycling, and they put on a great race once again today.
Matty, you said to me before we came on air that a lot of the athletes who are competing at the Olympic Games are here racing, except for the Australians, the squad that will compete in Rio in a few weeks' time. And you made a good point.
And it was a good decision by the Australians not to bring him here, because we saw in the last lap and a half 3 crashes. And for the last couple of years that the race has been on here, there's been crashes because there is so much at stake. And if it's good enough for Mark Cavendish to leave the Tour de France to prepare for the Olympic Games, it's good enough for the Australian women to do the same.
Yep, sure is. All right, we can now cross to Chloe Hosking. Stand up and salute Australia. Here is the winner of La Course by the Tour de France.
I'm here with Chloe Hosking, the Australian superstar sprinter who's had a breakthrough season, winning 3 World Tour events now. Chloe, tell us about today's race and what the victory actually means. Has it sunk in?
I don't think so. Just to cross the line first, I was like, are they coming? Are they coming? And then they didn't come. Yeah, just to cross the line with my hands in the air is crazy. I still haven't seen my teammates. I think they came down in some crashes, so I'm a bit like, I want to know where they are. But I just kept riding after the finish, and people probably thought I was a bit weird, but my family and my fiance are probably 200 past the finish line, so I just had to go see them, and I think we're all in a bit of disbelief at the moment.
And how were your teammates out there today? Did they control the race? Were you happy with what they did to bring you to the finish?
They were incredible. There were a few moments there where we missed that first break that had, I think, 3 or 4 girls in it. And I just look up the peloton and they're all just on the front. And then Amy Peters was in a break with a lap to go, and I don't even know when we caught them actually. And yeah, Amy Roberts, our young British rider, was just, would be to the front and then at the back and then at the front and then at the back, and just never gave up. And of course our French rider Audrey was protecting me for the last 3 laps and put me in position, and so lucky.
So Ellen Van Dyke from the bowls team was away coming into the finish. Did that force your sprint early, and what were you thinking?
Yeah, she sort of took a flyer as we went under through the tunnel, and I just was jumping from train to train. First of all, Canyon were going, and then Rabo came, and I came through that bottom corner, which is still like 400 to go, on Pauline's wheel. And then she sort of swung with 300 to go, and I'm like, this is way too early. And then I sort of went, kicked, sat on Ellen's wheel, and then kicked again. And yeah, as I said, I was waiting for them to come, and they didn't come. So there's my teammates. Oh my God! Thank you.
Oh my goodness me, she describes that result quite perfectly. Powered away to the finish, and you can see and you can hear from the celebrations what a wonderful result for Chloe Hosking. And she's not here, well, she is here, Matt, but she's not going to the Olympics for good reason.
Yeah, the course at the Olympic Games is simply too hard for her. She wouldn't be able to play much of a role as a teammate, really, because there is such a big climb, let alone try and win the race herself. And she knows that. She knows what her objective is for the season. This is one of them, and she's achieved it. The next one is the World Championships in Qatar.
Yeah, Rochelle Gilmore said at the start of the broadcast that this is a very hard circuit. the cobbles. I'm not exactly sure how many races the women race over during the course of the season on roads like this, but this is a course for a tough lady.
It is, and it's a tough sprint. And you heard from Chloe herself how far out she went. And she was a little worried that she was caught on the front with 300 to go, but she had that stepping stone of Van Dijk, and then the emotion as she went across the line. And as you heard from her, she didn't celebrate until she got there. There's nothing like going early, and then it's time for the tears to flow.
Yeah, and she's been around a long time, Maddie. You've been following her career and calling her career for many, many years, and obviously great teammates around her. Immediately after that interview was conducted for the Wiggle Hi-Fi team. And I've got to say, full credit also to Rochelle Gilmore. She was commentating this race, and you heard towards the end of that commentary that she got quite emotional, Rochelle. She has done wonders for this team. She has done wonders, I think, for women's cycling.
Interesting relationship between the two of them, because when Chloe was the rising star and Rochelle was already established, they went to the Commonwealth Games together in Delhi, and it was a flat course, and it was like this. The same sort of rider that would win here would have won the Commonwealth Games then. And Chloe was the #1 rider. She was the protected rider from the team, and Rochelle had the opportunity to play a bit of a free hand. Rochelle won, and Chloe got the bronze medal. And there was a little bit of tension, but Rochelle showed her maturity, so too did Chloe. They've come together now as manager and pupil, effectively, and Rochelle's getting the best out of Chloe, because she understands the sort of rider that she is.
Well, these are the images. We're in Paris, and this is a beautiful place to be any time of the year, but particularly when the Tour de France comes home. And La Course by La Tour de France, a women's event, takes place, and this is a precursor to what we're going to see in a few hours when the men make it home after 3 weeks on the road. A beautiful place to be. That is the famous Ferris wheel on the Place de Concorde. And Maddie, we've been here many times now. It just brings goosebumps every time we do come here, and even more so following the result from Chloe Hosking.
Yeah, it does, and it's been great the last few years that we've had this race on, because normally we come here and we're waiting for the men to arrive, and it's a little bit of patting each other on the back of having survived the 3 weeks, but you come here with something fresh to look at. Yeah. And I think it's a great initiative by ASO, who organised the tour, and they do the same at the Volta a España as well. So there's a women's race now, which was on for the first time last year, at the end of the Tour of Spain. And this is really important for women's cycling, to have races in conjunction with the men, so as they get the appropriate exposure. Because you saw how good the race was. It was action-packed.
Yeah, we're going to see the presentation very, very soon, and for the first time an Australian will grace that podium in this women's race. Only 5 years after Cadel Evans was gracing the podium right here on the Champs-Élysées as the only Australian to win the Tour de France.
Yeah, and it's nice that Cadel will be here today as well with the BMC team and playing that role. And for Chloe Hosking, she's a student of the sport. She loves cycling. She's grown up with it. She knows what this means.
Yeah, and you know, Maddie, there's talk about ASO. You know ASO very well. Of course, you commentate many of their races during the course of the year. ASO is talking, or there's rumours of this race being extended from 1 day to perhaps 2 or 3. What do you think?
Oh, and hopefully it gets extended to a week. I would really like to see, and the same with the Tour of Flanders. We see the men's Tour of Flanders in the afternoon and the women in the morning. And we saw Van Dijk, who attacked late today and almost made it to the finish. She won Flanders this year. And we need to get to the point where, much as we get to with tennis, we say, who's going to win the Australian Open? Williams and maybe Nadal. We don't say the women's Australian Open and who's going to win the men's, and we need it to get to the same position with women's cycling. And we say, who wins the Tour of Flanders? Well, I think it's going to be Sagan, and I think maybe Tiffany Cromwell. Yeah.
We often get asked, why isn't there a women's Tour de France, an event that perhaps follows the men's race over 3 weeks? Well, that's purely impossible, isn't it?
It used to happen, but not for the whole 3 weeks, in the 1980s, and we had an Australian on the podium in 3rd place in 1988. Commercially, it wasn't working, though, and that was the reality of it. Because ASO, it's not St Vincent's de Paul. Ultimately, it's a commercial organisation, but there's scope for this to work commercially, and I hope that it does.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. If you just joined us, Chloe Hosking has won the women's event, and we're hoping to get a special guest up here on our set. And I'm actually standing on Robbie's box, by the way, and I've never had to do that, thanks to you.
Well, and I'm not even on my toes, Tomo, but I have chosen the high side. Here we go. Sarah.
Come on through, Sarah. That's Sarah Roy.
How are you, Jessica?
I'm good.
Step on in.
Thanks.
All right, this is going to be interesting. Well, we do have Sarah Roy as a member of the AIS team, and Maddie.
Jessica Allen, how was it for you, as one of the youngest riders of the team, to get the chance on such a big stage, knowing that it's going to a worldwide audience?
Oh, it was just unreal. This is only my second race with Orica AIS, so to be given an opportunity to race one of the biggest races in the world is just Oh, unreal.
And Sarah, I saw you, I was watching you very closely the last lap, and you had Lauren Rowney with you, but then you were trying to follow the wheel. I saw you trying to get on the wheel at Tiffany Cromwell, and there was a lot of traffic up the back.
Yeah, it was a really hectic finish out there today, and like I said earlier, I think there were a lot of nervous riders out there, and it's just so fast coming down this way, and on the cobbles it's really bumpy, it's really sketchy, and these huge bumps come out of nowhere and you're just not ready for it, and people are bumping into each other, and there's quite a big crash there, but I think we were lucky to avoid that, and we did our best.
Well, tell us about your thoughts on Chloe Hosking. Sure, you're on rival teams, but she's a fellow Australian. How do you feel about it?
Oh, it's really exciting. I mean, at the end of the day, we're so far from home over here in Europe, and we're just pumped. We're pumped, and Aussie won. And I think I was told earlier she was only the second Australian to win on the Champs-Élysées. So, yeah, it's really exciting. And I saw a few tears come out of Chloe, and people think she's a bit of a hard woman, but you know, she gets emotional as well. So, and I also saw her parents out there, and they were cheering for us as well. And yeah, so we're all a bit of a community over here, and she'll be celebrating tonight for sure.
Well, if you've just joined us, then we thank you for joining us. Viewers from Western Australia, you're watching live coverage of the Tour de France. We've just seen the completion of La Course by Le Tour de France, the women's event in its third year now, and we've seen Chloe Hosking win the race today. Only the third person to do so, the first Australian to do so. We're not far away from the presentations, as a matter of fact, so it's been a timely visit by viewers from Western Australia. The aerial views from Paris, they're magnificent. We're talking to Sarah Roy and other members of the Orica AIS team, but for now, it's time for the podium. It's time for a little slice of history here in one of the biggest women's races in the world. We salute Chloe Hosking, the winner of today's La Course.
De la Française des Jeux, Madame Stéphane Palaise qui récompense Marianne Vos, lauréate de l'édition 2014, championne olympique, championne du monde à 3 reprises sur la route, championne du monde sur la piste, championne du monde de judo, c'est l'une de nos plus belles championnes.
Marianne Vos in third position, a fantastic result from Marianne Vos, given the pressure that is on her at every single international race. For you, Jessica, as somebody who's grown up seeing Marianne Vos as the benchmark for women's cycling, what was it like to race against her here?
Oh, awesome. I've raced a few races against Vos, and whenever you see her, you know she's an awesome wheel to be on, and it's just, yeah, fantastic being in a race with someone you've kind of idolised your whole life.
And coming up in second position, the Finnish national champion, Le Pesetto, is making her way up on the podium. Sarah, she's a really quick finisher. She almost got there. And was she one of the riders that you were watching closely?
Yeah, I was watching her actually. I've raced her in the past, and she just got me on the line over in Switzerland, I believe, a few weeks ago. So yeah, she was definitely one to watch today. So she'll be very happy up there.
And now for Chloe Hosking to make her way up onto the podium. And the knees might be a little bit wobbly as she goes up those steps. You can see the emotion in her body as she's waiting to be called up. It's almost a smile of disbelief. Chloe Hosking sounds even more significant when it gets delivered in French.
Le prestige et l'émotion au rendez-vous. Chloé Hosking, récompensée par Madame Stéphane Palaise, présidente de la Française des Jeux, qui a salué chaleureusement la lauréate australienne de la formation Wiggle High Five. Mesdames et messieurs, la place de la Concorde, l'Australie, la Finlande, les Pays-Bas, à l'honneur sous vos applaudissements.
Well, Chloe Hosking on top of the world right now, on top of Paris, and it's a pretty significant moment, Maddie Keenan.
It is a huge moment for her, and you could see that emotion in her as she made her way up. It was nice for us to get a chance to speak to Jessica Allen and Sarah Roy and their opportunity to ride the race. And Jessica, as one of the young rising stars of Australian cycling. She'll watch this from Chloe Hosking.
And so will we, Matt, because she's taking a selfie right now with her second and third place getters, and I think that'll flash all over the world, that particular shot. It's great to see, and Chloe Hosking, I think she deserves this victory. She's been around a long time, and she is one of the strongest sprinters in the world of women's cycling.
And she's proven that based on who's on the podium with her.
Yep.
Anybody that beats Voss is the most complete cyclist in the world, including amongst all the men. We speak a lot about Peter Sagan, but she's proven it with world titles, mountain biking, cyclocross, on the track and on the road, plus Olympic gold medals as well.
Matty, SBS is screening live coverage of the World Championships, the UCI World Championships from Qatar later this year. Chloe Hoskins on this performance, she must go in there as a favourite.
She is. She's my favourite for the World Championships. We've never won the gold medal at the World Championships in the women's road race. We've won it twice at the Olympic Games, Kathy Watt in 1992, Sarah Carrigan in 2004. So our women have always been amongst the world's best. We've had silver medals at the World Championships, but we haven't had a gold medal. The rainbow jersey, Chloe Hosking will start as one of the big favourites.
Yeah, terrific stuff. Just for confirming the results, Chloe Hosking from Australia, the Wiggle High Five team. Second place was Pestisto, and in third place was Mariana Voss, the absolute legend. Maddie, just to wrap it up, many people are saying that Mariana Voss is perhaps the best cyclist, male or female, going around in the world. Given what she's done, you look at her career, look at her parcours, it's just incredible. 7-time winner of the Cyclocross World Championships, a multiple winner of the World Championships, an Olympic champion as well. How do you rate Mariana Voss?
She is, without question, the most complete cyclist in the world. She's been Olympic champion on the track, she's been Olympic champion on the road, she's been Cyclocross World Champion, Junior Mountain Bike World Champion. The stats speak for themselves. You know I love a stat, and hers stack up.
Yeah, they sure do, Matty. It's great to have you on our set for our live coverage of this final day of what is a very special day. We look forward to your comments. And look, personally, and from everybody back home watching as part of the SBS Tour de France coverage, thank you for everything you've done in terms of your commentary. Thank you for giving us so much insight. Your knowledge is second to none. We thank you.
I'm a cycling nerd, and it's a privilege to be able to do it and be part of a great team. And to work alongside Robbie, Phil and Paul, what an honour.
Good on you, mate. Matt Keenan, Doug Away will be back, and we'll bring you all from the final stage of this Tour de France, and we'll review the last 3 weeks.